When your dog licks you and then bites you, do you actually know what they're trying to say? Most owners think they do. After all, licking feels like one of the easiest dog behaviors to understand. It happens during greetings, during quiet moments, and sometimes when your dog is sitting so close to you that it feels impossible to doubt what it means. The message seems obvious. They're happy, they trust you, they want to be near you. And then something changes, not dramatically, not aggressively, just enough to make you stop and wonder. A quick nip, a gentle bite, a moment that doesn't seem to fit with everything that came before it. Because if the licking meant affection, why would it end with teeth? Most people answer that question almost immediately. They assume the dog became annoyed, overstimulated, or simply changed moods. But the more behavior experts studied these interactions, the more they realized that many owners may be focusing on the wrong part of the story. Because what makes this behavior so fascinating isn't necessarily the bite, it's what happened before it. The bite is simply the moment that gets our attention. The real message may have started much earlier, and once you begin looking at the interaction that way, you may discover that your dog has been saying far more than you ever realized. To understand what that message might be, we have to start with something most people never question: the licking. Ask almost any dog owner why dogs lick people, and you'll probably hear the same answer. It's affection. It's their version of a kiss. It's a simple way of saying, "I love you." And to be fair, that's not completely wrong. But here's the thing. The more researchers observed dogs interacting with both humans and other dogs, the more they realized that licking is much more complicated than it looks. Dogs don't only lick the people they love. They lick other dogs. They lick puppies. They lick objects. Some dogs even seem strangely interested in licking the same spot over and over again. If licking meant only one thing, those behaviors wouldn't make much sense. What scientists eventually discovered is that licking belongs to a much larger social language. Sometimes it helps dogs gather information. Sometimes it helps them communicate. Sometimes it helps them strengthen social bonds. And very often, several of those things are happening at the same time. That's important because it changes the way we see the interaction. Most people think the lick is the message, but what if the lick is only the beginning of the message? When your dog walks over and licks your hand, they may not simply be expressing affection. They may be initiating a moment of connection, a moment of attention, a moment of interaction between two individuals who share a relationship. And relationships are at the center of almost everything dogs do. If you've ever noticed your dog following you from room to room, waiting by the door when you leave, or becoming excited the moment you return, you've already seen how important those relationships are. Dogs are social animals. They pay close attention to the individuals who matter to them, and much of their behavior revolves around maintaining those connections. Which is why the lick often happens during moments of closeness, on the couch, during greetings, during quiet moments when nothing particularly exciting is happening. Because in those moments, the interaction itself becomes the reward. And that's exactly why the bite feels so confusing. If the dog is seeking connection, why would they suddenly do something that appears to push that connection away? Most people assume the answer must be aggression, or irritation, or a sudden change in mood. But behavior experts say that may be where the misunderstanding begins. Because what if the relationship never changed at all? What if the dog wasn't switching from affection to aggression? What if they were still participating in the same interaction, but trying to communicate something different? That possibility changes everything. Because it means the bite may not be the opposite of the lick. It may be connected to it. And once you start looking at the behavior that way, another question immediately appears. If the bite isn't necessarily a sign that the dog stopped enjoying the interaction, then what causes the interaction to change in the first place? And the answer may have less to do with emotions than most people think. That answer begins with something surprisingly simple: limits. Most people assume that if a dog enjoys something, they will continue enjoying it until they decide to walk away. But that's not always how social interactions work. A moment can begin positively and still change over time, not because the relationship changes, but because the experience itself changes. Think about the last time someone scratched your back or rubbed your shoulders. At first, it felt good. Maybe it even felt great. But eventually, there came a point when you were ready for it to stop. Not because you suddenly disliked the person, and not because the experience became negative. Your body simply reached a limit. Dogs can experience something very similar. Behavior experts have observed that many dogs become overwhelmed gradually rather than suddenly. The interaction starts comfortably, but as the stimulation continues to build, the dog's experience begins to shift. What felt pleasant a few moments ago may start feeling like too much. The important part is that dogs rarely move straight from comfort to biting. Long before the bite appears, there is often a conversation taking place. A dog may glance away, their body may become slightly still, they may shift their weight. Their ears may change position, the interaction may pause for just a fraction of a second. To humans, these details seem almost invisible, but to another dog, they are meaningful signals. They are the softer parts of communication, the polite requests that happen before a stronger message becomes necessary. And here's where many owners accidentally miss what's happening. Because the dog is still close, still engaged, still participating in the interaction. From the human perspective, everything appears normal, but from the dog's perspective, the interaction may already be changing. That's why so many bites feel sudden. Not because they truly appeared out of nowhere, but because the earlier messages went unnoticed. The bite becomes the first signal the human actually sees, and once people understand that, something remarkable often happens. Dogs that once seemed unpredictable begin making sense. Interactions that felt confusing suddenly reveal a pattern. Owners stop focusing only on the bite and begin paying attention to everything that happened before it. Which is why understanding dogs is often less about watching for dramatic behavior and more about noticing the quiet behavior. The signals that happen before the signals, the conversation before the conclusion. If this is already changing the way you see your dog's behavior, consider subscribing, because the next part takes us somewhere even more surprising. Because while limits explain many of these interactions, they don't explain all of them. Some dogs lick, give a gentle bite, and then immediately return to seeking attention. They don't move away, they don't appear overwhelmed. If anything, they seem eager to continue the interaction, which raises another question. If the bite isn't always about reaching a limit, then why does this pattern appear so often? To answer that, we have to go back to the very beginning of a dog's life, because some of the most important clues may have been learned long before your dog ever knew your name. When puppies enter the world, they don't learn about relationships through words, they learn through experience. For the first weeks of their lives, nearly everything important comes from their mother. She feeds them, cleans them, keeps them safe, and guides them through a world they don't yet understand. Much of that communication happens through physical contact. A mother dog uses her tongue, her body, and sometimes even her mouth to comfort, guide, and correct her puppies. To us, those actions seem very different from one another. To a puppy, they are often part of the same experience. Comfort and correction come from the same source. Affection and guidance come from the same source. The puppy learns that physical contact can carry many different meanings, sometimes all within the same interaction. And while dogs eventually grow up, those early lessons don't simply disappear. That's one reason behavior experts often remind owners that dogs experience the world differently than we do. Humans tend to separate actions into neat categories. We like to decide whether something is affectionate or aggressive, positive or negative, friendly or unfriendly. Dogs are often far less rigid. The same interaction can serve several purposes at once. Which brings us back to the lick and the bite. In some situations, the bite isn't ending the interaction at all. It's becoming part of it. That's especially true during play. If you've ever watched young dogs playing together, you've probably seen them chase, wrestle, grab, mouth, and immediately return to playing again. To human eyes, parts of that interaction can look surprisingly rough, but to the dogs involved, it's often completely normal. Because play and communication frequently overlap, excitement and connection frequently overlap, and sometimes the mouth becomes part of that conversation. This is why context matters so much. A gentle bite from a relaxed dog doesn't necessarily mean the same thing as a bite from a fearful dog. A playful mouth on your hand doesn't necessarily carry the same meaning as a warning. The behavior may look similar, but the emotional story behind it can be very different, and that's what makes this topic so fascinating. People often spend all their time searching for the meaning of the bite, when the real answer may be hidden in everything surrounding it. The relationship, the body language, the situation, the moments that came before. Because the bite itself is often only one small piece of a much larger message. And perhaps that's the final perception shift hidden inside this behavior. The question was never simply, why did my dog bite me? The better question may be, what was my dog trying to communicate? Sometimes the answer is affection, sometimes it's excitement, sometimes it's a limit, sometimes it's play. And sometimes it's several of those things happening at the same time. But once you stop looking at the bite as a contradiction and start looking at it as part of a conversation, something remarkable happens. The behavior becomes less confusing, the dog becomes easier to understand, and the relationship between the two of you begins to make a little more sense. Because in the end, the lick and the bite are not always opposites. Sometimes they're simply two different parts of the same message. Maybe that's the real lesson hidden inside all of this. Most dogs spend their entire lives trying to communicate with the people they love, but they can only do it with the tools they have. A look, a movement, a lick, a gentle bite. Small moments that are easy to dismiss until we realize they were never random in the first place. The more you learn to notice those moments, the more your dog begins to make sense. Behaviors that once felt confusing become easier to understand, and the relationship you share starts to feel a little deeper than it did before. Because in the end, your dog isn't asking you to be perfect. They're simply hoping you'll understand. And if you've ever wondered what your dog has been quietly waiting for you to do throughout their entire life, the answer may be far more emotional than most owners imagine. In our next video, we'll explore the one thing your dog wishes you would do before their time with you comes to an end, and why so many loving owners never realize how much it truly means.